of Inspiring Modulus Talks. My name is Jo, and I'm delighted to be your host for the third and last in the series of talks on neuroaesthetics and the importance of colours and patterns. Through our Modulus Talks, we hope to inform and educate, inviting experts in the design industry to share their expertise, knowledge and insights. If this is your first time joining us, you may wish to visit our website, www.modulus.com, where you'll be able to view all our webinars covering a variety of interesting topics. You also have the option to subscribe. So there will be a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions during the webinar, please do add them to the chat, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we have time for at the end. So it just leads me on to introduce you to our guests today from global design and build company Tetris. Our two guest speakers, Lucy Rees and Elena Nunziata, who will be sharing with us their success stories in neuroaesthetic interior design. Lucy is a skilled interior designer whose design approach is about creating aesthetically pleasing spaces that prioritize the well-being of people. Lucy was recently involved in a charity project designing a therapy room for neurodiverse children, promoting comfort, sensory stimulation, and therapeutic engagement. Lucy has created a truly wonderful space. Having visited myself last week, it was clearly evident what a difference this has made to the school and to all the children. So well done, Lucy. Elena is an experienced interior designer with 18 years post-MA experience. Elena's strengths lie in her ability to assess and utilize materials and colors to create desired emotional responses and enhance environments. Having transitioned from product design to interior design, Elena has worked on numerous design schemes and is passionate about creating environments that positively impact people's lives. Welcome to you both, and thank you very much for joining us today. We look forward to hearing all about your success stories. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you for the introduction. Hi all, really excited to be here today and share our projects with you. Just a quick intro about us and what we do. I know Johan already gave a very good introduction, but we are part of the design team at Tetris, a design and build firm. Tetris is owned by JLL, which is a global real estate company founded in UK, but well established in 80 different countries across the world. Tetris UK, I say UK because also Tetris is scattered around the globe. But here in UK, we specialize in office fit out and retail. However, we also have experiences in a wide range of services that includes education and care facilities. Today, we are very pleased to present here two projects, which the main focus is neurodiversity and how colors and patterns can influence users and their environment. So Lucy is going to talk about her first project, and I hope you all enjoy it.
Thanks, Joanne and Eleanor, for the introductions, and thanks everyone for joining today. So as you all know, and I think Joanne and Eleanor both mentioned, we'll be sharing some recently completed projects that focus on neurodiversity and inclusive design. The first project is for a therapy room for neurodiverse children at Carden Nursery and Primary School. The aim was to create a calm and sensory-friendly space that supports their learning and development. The second project that Eleanor will discuss is the JLL Leeds office, a workplace environment that focuses on inclusive design and sustainability. So to kick things off, we'll start with Carden Nursery and School. So starting with Carden School, this project was originally set up as a competition organised by the charity Differing Minds and Modulus. As mentioned, the aim of the project was to create a therapy room for neurodiverse children aged 3 to 10. So with this space, we wanted to create a sensory-friendly environment that promotes well-being and inclusivity, whilst also creating a fun and playful environment for the children using organic shapes, colours and textures. We could have left this project at a conceptual stage. However, after winning, we felt it would be amazing to bring it to life, especially understanding the benefit it would have to Carden School, as 20% of the school's intake are in fact neurodivergent. So I think, you know, that's important to have in mind. So I will go on to why this project. And also speak a little bit about how important learning about, you know, neurodiverse people, like how important it is to know all about designing for inclusivity. So it is estimated that 15 to 20% of people are neurodivergent. This statistic is only for people that have actually been diagnosed. So, you know, this number is probably higher. I think this highlights the importance of designing inclusively, as it will benefit not only the neurodivergent, but I believe it will benefit everyone. For myself personally, as a young designer and as someone that didn't know that much about neurodiversity, this competition for me was a really exciting challenge, and I wanted to learn more about inclusive design and how we can, you know, shape the world to be a better place. Bit cringy, but you know, I think that is very true. And I think also on top of that, when we received this project, our team had a lot of personal connections and experiences with neurodiversity, so that made it even more of a project we wanted to get involved in. So our objective with the space was to create an environment that engages all 5 senses. So touch, taste, smell, look, and hear. We wanted to create a sensory-rich environment for the children to explore. So from my research and from collaborating with people in the industry, experts, and then also my colleagues, I learned that multi-sensory interactions are important for neurodiverse children, as they support diverse learning styles. These experiences can help with various skills and manage sensory sensitivities. They can also enhance learning abilities, reduce stress, and boost cognitive skills and more. So we looked at each of these elements to inspire the design. And then moving on to this. So as well as including all the 5 senses and wanting to engage all of them within the space, we also use nature as inspiration for the look and feel of the space, as it has been shown to have a calming and positive effect. Our design looked at taking inspiration from the local wildlife and the forests that surround the school. We wanted to incorporate a tree to create a focal point within the space, and create a cave-like tunnel to create a comforting area for the children to relax and enjoy. I also think the idea of this cave, you know, it's children, they like the idea of dens, and it gives them that sort of comfort, and it's, you know, to create a peaceful environment influence from nature. We also, within the whole space, looked at using colours, fabrics and patterns inspired by nature, you know, using lots of soft greens and blues as reference to the forest and to the sky. And I think even, you know, within other design, using colours inspired by nature and using patterns is something we see in a lot of different spaces, you know, in workplace environments and hospitality, as it is shown to have a really positive effect. So I think it is important to understand being neurodivergent is not the same for everyone, as I'm sure, you know, everyone on this talk is probably aware. It is important to recognise the wide variety and the unique needs of the individuals. So within this design, we wanted to create a variety of zones to accommodate for all. We created 3 zones: quiet, reflective, and interactive. The quiet area is to provide a calm and comforting environment for the children to relax. The interactive zone offers stimulating activities to engage and challenge the children's minds. And then you have the reflective area, which is a mindful space inspired by nature. So here you'll see an original concept design render and some of the key features that we envisioned for the space. Of course, as the project developed and as we move on to show you the outcome, you'll notice like a few changes, tweaks as the design developed, but essentially we looked at zoning the areas using playful shapes on the flooring and on the walls, keeping in mind the different zones, quiet, interactive and reflective. We wanted to offer a range of spaces and activities, such as the like an interactive light game which reacts to sound and touch, a felt wall, and then a writable wall. And originally we had a ball pit in the design as well. These elements are all to engage the 5 senses essentially. And then I think it's important to also note we wanted to add a variety of different lighting with different settings for it to be adaptable for the user. I think flexibility within this space was something we really wanted to think about, because as each child is unique, so they can use the environment how they please. So before we unveil the final outcome of the project, I felt it would be interesting to show you the before to highlight the difference and what you're about to see. As you can see, this existing room, so like of course it's only, the space was fairly small, however the impact it will have is enormous. This space wasn't used for particularly very much. There was, I would say, like lots of bits of furniture, but I wouldn't say it technically had like a purpose. So I think that was really important to give this space, a purpose for specifically neurodivergent children. So I will move on to the unveiling of the space. So here you can see photographs from a couple of weeks ago when we unveiled and finished the project. They had the opening last week, which received really positive feedback. The overall design is playful whilst creating a calm environment. So we looked at colours specifically, choosing colours like blue to create a calm environment and green to promote well-being, whilst including pops of muted yellows and reds to add some energy to the space. So like I said, we've already had some really positive feedback. So from the school and also from our toughest critics, which are the children. I think they are probably the scariest critics, but I've heard really positive things about the room and that they are really enjoying the space, which is great to hear. So I think also it's really important to understand how this project, of course, originally a competition and was just solely for the design of the space. However, as we felt so passionately about it, we really thought it would be best for us to, bring it to life and to build it. So this project was done completely pro bono, meaning the school, didn't have to pay anything, and they now can enjoy the space how they please. We were able to achieve this by collaborating with a lot of different people, including people within my team and then suppliers such as Modulus and then a range of other suppliers as well. And I think it is just amazing to see, what we can all achieve by working together, because this definitely wouldn't have been able to have been done without everyone helping and supporting us in the design process. So yeah, I think I will pass over to Eleanor to talk about our next project, but any questions on the Carden Nursery and Primary School, I'll happily answer at the end. but I hope you like the design. So I'll pass over to Eleanor now. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. So now we'll move on into a different category of design. We'll be talking about one of our recent completed projects. It's an office fit out, but you'll see a few similarities in the project that Lucy just did, in the tones that have been used and the concept as well. So the concept was developed in a very similar way, but for a completely different asset. So JLL Leeds, it's an office environment in the heart of town. It's in a new build complex. It's an office space that has been designed placing the user needs at the forefront of attention to enhance productivity and collaboration in the workplace. The space promotes well-being throughout a variety of spaces, but also using flexible furniture and finishes that embrace a very strong connection with nature and the surrounding landscape. We designed this environment with also thinking about sustainability from the product to all the materials we used. We have engaged with the manufacturers to ensure that all the components contain a high level of recycled content and they are also durable for use. So an evergreen product. I think something important to say before we move on into the concept discussion, regardless of the neurodiversity topic, is after COVID, people really struggled with their return to work. Some people, partially because of the commute to work, which is really stressful, but also that sense of safety and the enclosure that your home gives you has been really hard to leave behind. So employers have to think and try to find a more inclusive and engaging way to bring people back into work. So ultimately, designing for neurodiversity helps everybody. So it creates better opportunity for people in, but also outside the workplace. The main factors we have to think about when designing for neurodiversity are colors and patterns, as using low stimulant colors and avoiding heavy patterns can help mitigate stress. Lighting is very important. It's mostly about the glare and the flickering of the screen, but using as much as natural light as possible, especially in areas where people sit for longer period of time. So it's really key. Then zoning, it's another important factor. So having a flexible environment with a variety of work settings, such as designated quiet areas to improve focus and concentration, that really helps. Then we have acoustic, which it's very important, and to provide spaces that can perform when concentration and privacy is needed. And finally, we also found that storage was incredibly important, as it provides security and safety for people that are using the space. So with these very important points in mind, we designed a flexible space that can adapt to different uses throughout the day. You can see in this, on the right-hand side, the general arrangement and how the desks are placed on the facade of the building, and they all benefit from the natural light throughout. But also all the open collaboration spaces and the meeting rooms are placed around the facade. We just reserved the perimeter around the core for more quiet working and privacy spaces, but also storage spaces, which don't really require much natural lighting. As we mentioned earlier, we designed the surrounding landscape with the surrounding landscape in mind. In this particular case, we took inspiration from picturesque Yorkshire and paired it with the Four Seasons as a conceptual color theme. We found iconic towns in the region of Yorkshire and paired them with seasonal theme color. And then we translate them into the space plan to start building our color palette for the space. So we used summer as a vibrant and collaborative entrance to the space, which provides collaboration and creativity. It uses quite bright and fresh colors, but all muted to create a lively and positive ambient that incorporates also flexible furniture, so the area can be used for informal discussion and brainstorming. Then we have autumn, which is presented in earthy tones like terracotta colors, and this is the focus space and encourages reflection and growth. This is also a reflection on the JLL brand. And we utilize really warm colors in this space, such as gold, orange, and browns, all to create a secure environment. Then we have winter as the peaceful zone, which is characterized by muted blues, and it promotes comfort and connection. In this zone, we introduce really warm lighting and soft textures, and also cozy seating to create a comfortable and inviting atmosphere. Blues is also seen, as Lucy mentioned before, a color that evokes a sense of warmth and contentment. So then we move into the last one, which is spring, and all the enclosed meeting spaces have got this kind of muted pink palette, which encourages individual focus and productivity by providing quiet zones and very comfortable seating. We also introduced quite a lot of greenery throughout the office, as it promotes well-being. As I just said, the palette of all these spaces uses really neutral color and muted to define zones, as they are used to emphasize a space and give it a specific purpose. This also helps with the wayfinding element and how people navigate the space, so it creates a narrative throughout the layout. Within these spaces, there is a variety of work settings that help the user really connect to different activities throughout the office environment. The furniture are very flexible. We have height-adjustable tables and desks with a variety of sitting positions. We also introduced collaboration spaces, but as well as some quiet working areas. Also, there is a number of bookable and free-to-use pods that break up the open plan space to give more flexibility. Also, the introduction of personal storage throughout the space plan gives particular attention to, and we gave quite a lot of attention to acoustic in the open plan and the enclosed area to minimize all the sound reverberation, which is very important for neurodiversity. So then to move on to the final pictures, this is a general selection. We are showing a detail of the meeting rooms, but also quiet area, a snapshot of the open plan and the auditorium spaces. But you can see here how there is nothing particularly overpowering. There is no bold contrast. Instead, everything works quite in harmony, and you can see in one of the quite a lot of curves. So we try to really emphasize the organic element and bring a little bit of the natural world inside the office space. But something that although we mentioned all these muted gradients, we also took into account people with visual impairments and kept some sharp contrast between important elements such as the color of the wall, the door frames, but also the doors, so that you can visualize that clearly. But you can see the muted palettes and how everything is gradually taking shape throughout the space. And I think this is us. I hope you'll enjoy it. You can obviously contact us separately to this if you want to have more information about specific items. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And I think obviously, happy to answer questions. And if we can't answer all questions today, like Eleanor said, happily contact us if you want to hear any more details.
Thank you both so much. That was a wonderful presentation. It was great to hear your approach and the research behind these projects, and obviously, designing for inclusivity on all the projects that you work on. So thank you. We do have some questions, so we're trying to cover as many as we can during the time that we have. So the first question for you: what should designers keep in mind when planning future projects involving the effective use of colour?
Sorry, could you just say that one more time? Thanks.
What should designers keep in mind when planning future projects involving the effective use of colour?
So I think for office spaces, but I think also for the other projects, as I mentioned before, we always try to give a purpose to color and to define a zone. This doesn't need to be particularly dramatic and be bold, but it needs to gradually fit into the space. But we always keep the zoning in mind, and if it's a collaboration area, maybe it's different from a quiet space, but try always to not be too imposing on the kind of color that we use.
Yeah, I think also, just touching on what Eleanor's saying, we often use color as a way of zoning, but depending on, so what you were saying, obviously, collaboration area, you might choose a color which is a bit more vibrant, but more so than, say, a quiet focus area, because I think each color can have like a different impact on the person's mood, well-being, or just how they're feeling and how long someone wants to stay in the space. So I think it's really important to consider, what the space is for and what it's being used for and how you want the person to feel. Because when I was doing my research for the Carden School project, I looked into each colour and what it meant and how it would make children feel. How I was saying about blue is meant to be quite calming, and then whereas the reds and the yellows slightly more having an energetic feel. So I think it's just taking that into account. And then, like Eleanor was saying, for us personally, I think, if someone's going to be in a space for a while, having like the muted colours work better, but that doesn't say you can't, use the those intense and bright colours. I just think it has to be done in a clever way. Yeah.
With a purpose.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We've had lots of comments, and everybody congratulating you on both projects, and particularly the Carden Primary School. One question: as part of the project, did the nursery have to undertake a decluttering exercise? Because I assume having fewer items on display help with children's neurodivergence.
So, when we first went on site and went to go see the school, obviously there was quite a lot of toys, old furniture, things like that within the space. I think so the school dealt with the toys that were in there previously, so that wasn't something that I would know about. But I think obviously, me personally, when designing the space, I didn't want it to be, overwhelming and like filled with too much. I think actually just having a few toys, games, elements, and we've got some storage. I think that is just a bit more calming for the children. So I think definitely that is done like purposefully for, you know, to have a positive impact on the space.
Absolutely. I think the more you leave them to try and express their imagination, the better. Live in that space so that, you know, curiosity to develop itself is really important. And I think this goes back, there are few, you know, surfaces that you can play with, but it's not overcrowded with toys.
Someone also asked about the thoughts on use of sound and music in the space. Is it a quiet space, or is there sound and music?
So I think with sound and music, obviously, I think it needs to be used like adaptively. So, you know, we wouldn't want music on all the time, because for some children that just would, you know, not work, and I think it would cause sensory overload, whereas for some children they would really enjoy that. And so I think it's just having that adaptability. So, you know, we would welcome like speakers within the space. So the light gain that we have in the environment that reacts to sound. So I know that that's had really positive feedback. So when you play music, or even just, you know, clapping or making any noise, the lights on the wall basically interact with it. So I think the children were quite amazed by that, and it's something that, you know, you're exploring sound and seeing like sight at the same time, which is really interesting. But I think, again, with the idea of sound, I think it's just having that adaptability for the space.
Thanks, Lucy. I think we've got time for just one more quick question. It says you've used colour very well. Can you please expand on the use of patterns when designing for neurodiversity?
So I think pattern wise, we went with like the choices I made had like a key relationship with nature. So, you know, on the tree there's like a bark like wallpaper, and that's got like a slight texture, but again it's nothing too overpowering and overwhelming. So I think obviously it still makes it playful and plays with nature, but it's just not going to be overwhelming for the children. And then also on one of the walls we had a forest like it was a wallpaper but almost watercolor effect mural, and that was also really that worked really well in the space, because again it was just soft colors, you know, mimicked a forest and nature. So I think, you know, having patterns and colors and textures like that, it just worked well in the space for the children. Not any harsh angles and lines, all quite organic shapes as well. I think seemed to work well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I think that's all we've got time for in terms of questions and answers. So it just leaves me to thank you both and to everybody that has obviously joined us today, and thank you for your questions. The questions, the talk and the questions and answers will be shared with you via email at the end of the session. For our next series of talks, please join us in November, when we'll be discovering all about lighting. And if you'd like more information, please don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. And obviously, if you have any more questions, feel free to add them to the chat and we can pass them on to Lucy and Alina. Okay, well, thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Joanne.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.